nothing coming in, nothing leaving. All traffic, air traffic nationwide has been shut down by the Federal Aviation Administration in reaction to what definitely appears to be a terrorist attack on the United States. First there at the World Trade Center in New York, and now, as you heard from Dave Satter, where the west side of the Pentagon and an area near the heliport was hit by a plane.
Again, the White House has been evacuated after the Secret Service received a credible threat of a terrorist act against the presidential mansion and residence. Again, the AP reporting the Secret Service has received a credible threat of a terrorist threat against the presidential mansion and residence.
We also have learned that Blair Mansion, which is the residence of heads of state who come in as guests to the United States, has also been evacuated. Again, specifically BWI, but this covers every airport in the United States. They've been shut down. All airplane traffic nationwide. Of course, in our area, that means BWI, right. National, Dulles, all closed down, nothing coming in, nothing going out. This is a horrible sight and a scary, very frightening day.
Again, what you're looking at now is the Pentagon. Some witnesses say it appeared to be an American Airlines 757, which plowed into the helipad part of the Pentagon, the 395 side of the Pentagon. Hold on just 1 minute.
All right, we just want to update you in case you have not heard, just turning on and don't know what you're looking at. This is not a made-for-TV movie. This is the real thing. On the left, black billowing smoke from the Pentagon. On the right, billowing smoke from the Twin Towers of the World Trade Center in New York. Shortly after 8:44 this morning in New York, a small, some say a twin-engine plane crashed into the World Trade Center tower on the right of your screen. About 18 minutes later, an airliner, some say hijacked, a 757 that you're looking at right now. This is a tape of that earlier this morning. That building and that plane going deliberately heading straight into the tower on the left of your screen.
President Bush ordered a full-scale investigation, quoting the president, to hunt down the folks who committed this act.
Shortly after the president made that statement, we were getting word that there had been a plane heading towards the Pentagon going down, and that's what you see on the left-hand side of your screen, the picture in the box on the left-hand side. Dave Statter said you could see it. Some of the flames were beginning to diminish, but what observers noted, and those, they were in the airline industry, so we kind of take what they're saying at the word 757 American Airlines. They could see the plane, they could see the markings, crashed into the west side of the Pentagon near the heliport.
This is a live picture we're just getting here. This is the firefighters battling the blaze at the Pentagon. Look at that.
So you can see the damage.
This is just going to be raw tape that Dave Statter and his crew are
just feeding into us.
You can see this apparent terrorist attack. A jet slammed into the Pentagon about 15-20 minutes ago, the helipad side on 395. We have no word yet on casualties. The Pentagon has been evacuated, as has the White House and the U.S. Capitol building at Blair Mansion.
Before this happened at the Pentagon, President Bush went on the air to talk about the response, the U.S. response in light of the World Trade Center. But again, this is what happened right after he said we were going to hunt down the folks responsible for the apparent terrorist attack in New York City. And shortly after that, this is what happened at the Pentagon in Arlington. We're just getting across the wires in Los Angeles. Police departments there are on tactical alert, but there have been no threats in Los Angeles that police are aware of. But as you can imagine, major American cities are on heightened alert. And Los Angeles is saying we are in citywide tactical alert and have mobilized their anti-terrorist division. Let's go back to Dave Statter with more from the site of the Pentagon. Dave.
Can you hear me now?
We can.
All right, I'm here with Michael Kelly, who was a witness to this attack at the Pentagon. I'm going to let him describe what he saw here, I guess about 20 minutes ago would be, Michael Kelly. First of all, let me just first describe the scene. This is the west side of the Pentagon. the heliport side off of Washington Boulevard. Were you driving or what?
Yes, I was in the traffic on the 14th Street Bridge, right at the Pentagon, tied up going into town, and I heard this plane come over my head. It was really low.
What size plane?
It sounded like a small plane, but it was very, very low. And the next thing I know, there was this tremendous explosion as it hit the Pentagon. I looked over, and the smoke started coming up. Pieces of the plane and pieces of the Pentagon were falling onto the 14th Street, onto the Shirley Highway. Very scary. So I decided not to go across the 14th Street Bridge. I came around, and I'm wound up here, stopped in the traffic right at the Pentagon. I was trying to get back over to Memorial Bridge, but no
Had you
luck.
known about the World Trade Center?
Oh, yeah, I was listening to WTOP radio the whole time, and then this thing came right over my head, and it plowed. It was clearly a similar situation to what happened in New York.
There are injured people here. We can't tell you how many. We've certainly seen Arlington Fire and Rescue crews, the paramedics working on somebody in front of us. We have not heard the number of people injured. This attack, as you can see, did not seem to really penetrate the building a great distance, even though there is a great amount of fire on this side of the Pentagon, which I believe is, as you can compare it to the World Trade Center. I think the Pentagon has always been called the largest office building in the world, so there certainly is a comparison there, besides its obviously strategic implications. Arlington Fire here called in extra equipment. They've called in the National Airport Foam Unit, which
Dave?
just yes, go ahead.
Dave?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Dave?
Yes.
We just
Hold
want
on.
to break in because we want to go back to New York, where Dan Rather is anchoring our coverage, where one of the towers at the World Trade Center has collapsed. Let's go back to CBS.
There are no confirmed fatalities. Now, in Washington, the Pentagon has had a fire and explosions, much speculation of what would have caused the fires and explosions at the Pentagon in Washington, but very few facts. David Martin, our Pentagon correspondent, says that he has seen, I believe it said 5 injured people at the Pentagon. One eyewitness, and only one so far, is quoted as saying he thinks, I put that in quotation marks, he thinks a plane crashed into the Pentagon. But there'll be rumors all day. We're going to try to separate the rumors from the facts. Now, you're looking at a live picture of the Twin Towers of the World Trade Center. In flames, with much smoke. In the last few minutes, there have been 2 reports, but not yet officially confirmed, that a portion of at least one of the towers has collapsed. But I caution that that's an unconfirmed report, although it comes from 2 sources, and it's unclear whether that collapse is about the interior of the building or some portion of the exterior of the building. I want to emphasize again, not to be redundant, but this is a day in which rumors are going to spread like mildew in damp basements. And there'll be reports, some of them will be officially confirmed, some not. That's the environment in which we're dealing. Now, President Bush was in Florida this morning. He called this an apparent act of terrorism and rushed back to Washington. The president is in the air going back to Washington at the moment. Now, in Washington, the report spread that a plane also crashed at the Pentagon. See, David Martin says there are at least several injuries. Several is the word he used. The FAA has banned all aircraft takeoffs nationwide. Here in New York, the city is on a full terrorist alert. Bridges and tunnels are closed. You recall the World Trade Center was the target of a terrorist bombing in 1993. Now, again, it's important to point out that with television, what we can show you is what is at the end of the television camera. The whole city is not in smoke and flames, not by a long shot. The city is on a terrorist alert. Entry into the city has been closed off. Tunnels and bridges are closed off as a precautionary measure. But, you know, in many, many areas of New York City, life goes on this morning, and the same is true in Washington, D.C. So just keep in mind that when you see this picture constantly, it's of one section of New York City, and we go to Washington for the picture there, the Pentagon, the same thing. These pictures...
All right, this is Mike Buchanan along with Andrea Roan. We're here in Washington. We're going to keep you updated on this situation. We've also got an explosion. What you got, Chris?
We've got Chris.
The Beltway at 395 at the Pentagon has been shut down.
The Beltway at 395 near the Pentagon has been shut down, obviously because of what you're seeing right here on the screen. A plane hitting the west side of the building, a gaping hole there, and near the heliport. This after 2 planes struck the Twin Towers of the World Trade Center. Reports of a portion of the second tower that was hit at the World Trade Center appears to have collapsed. What you are looking at right now, though, is here at the Pentagon. Let's recap, Mike.
All right, what are we going to figure? Hold on, here's a...
These are raw footage coming back. That's our reporter there on the scene who will be giving us stories in just a few minutes. But people who have been evacuated from the Pentagon building after that building, the west side of the building, was struck by a plane not long after the twin attacks in New York City on the World Trade Center. An Associated Press reporter says he saw the tail end of a large airliner plunge into the Pentagon building. What we know, New York City is on a terrorist alert, and here in Washington, the White House, all of the White House, the old Executive Office building, Blair Mansion, other major government institutions, including Treasury and the State Department, have also been evacuated amid credible terrorist threats.
All right, Dave, go ahead, take it.
Thank you. We've got some eyewitnesses. Mike, why don't you stay on and show the pictures over here, and I'll talk to the eyewitnesses. You can look at what's going on, the firefighting efforts. We had a couple people who were in the Pentagon at the time. Tell me what happened.
We were sitting at our desks having a meeting, and there was a large shutter, or there was a shutter of the building, and the sound of a large thud.
Right, you could hear the impact, and there was a large concussion, like an explosion would do. The air would be a concussion.
But we didn't know there was an explosion. It was clear. We looked at each other and knew that something catastrophic had happened, but we had no idea what it was. People began evacuating immediately and went outside. And it wasn't until we were outside we realized what had happened.
How far away from you in the building were you when it happened?
Well, if you divide the building into fifths, 5 pie slices, which is the way the Pentagon renovation is scheduled. This is in the first wedge, the new wedge that just was finished, and we were in the next one over.
Did you see any injured other than the ones who were out here that we saw?
I didn't see any injuries.
Did you see what size of plane it was when you got outside?
No, but walking up here now along the road, there are pieces of aircraft spread all the way up the road, at least a third of a mile from the impact site.
What goes on? Can you tell us what would be in those offices, generally speaking? I know you can't go into great detail.
Well, we're looking at the E-ring of the Pentagon, and that's where the more senior officials are. That area, I believe, is where the Army Deputy Chief of Staff for Operations and the Army Deputy Chief of Staff for Personnel's offices are.
We're looking here also, I believe, I don't have a monitor, but I believe you're looking at one of the injured being taken away by Arlington Fire and Rescue. They've been on the scene since a few minutes after this happened. And I mentioned before, but the firefighters and police officers on the scene here have all been warned, keep a close look at the skies, watching for a possible second attack as what happened in New York. Mike and Andrea?
All right, we're going to go to Rick Armstrong. He's one of our photojournalists. He's down on the mall. Rick?
Hi, Buck.
What you got?
Not a whole lot other than the fact that the city is shut down. I'm at the base of the Washington Monument. Park police officer a few minutes ago told me they've shut down all the monuments. They're evacuating all the buildings, including the White House. I can look across the river at the Pentagon, and it's an incredible smoke plume.
Bet you everybody.
Emergency vehicles going in every direction. Look like Secret Service vehicles, fire vehicles, police vehicles. 25 years here, I've never seen anything like this.
What's the reaction of the people there, mostly tourists, I'm sure, and some working in the area?
To be honest with you, I've talked to a lot of tourists, and they're just, what do you expect? They're all shocked. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, I know.
It's hideous.
I know. Yeah. I can imagine what it's like down there. We're sitting here. Every plane we keep an eye on. I imagine everybody throughout the city.
Looking
you see
up
a
at
plane.
The sky.
Yes.
I've had no luck making any communication except for I'm on a payphone. The cell phones are down. The displays are down.
Right.
I don't know why.
I
think we know why.
We decided to come to this location. I'm with Frank Herzog. We were on a sports story. We decided to come to this location because this is a very likely spot for an act of terrorism. Sad it is to say that, but and so we're just kind of keeping our eyes and ears open here.
All right, Rick, thank you very much.
Yep.
Let's go to Lauren Ashburn now, USA Today. She's Lauren.
Frank.
This is Andrea and Buck.
Hi, Andrea. Hi, Buck. I am on the 22nd floor of the USA Today Tower 1 building, overlooking this immense plume of smoke. The E-ring of the Pentagon. You can't even see it from this distance. There is a helicopter hovering over the site, taking pictures and taking a look at what's happening inside. I'm looking down on traffic, which is completely gridlocked on Route 50 heading out of the city. Heading into the city on Route 395, you can see traffic is moving along quite quickly, and we have heard several fire trucks and EMS trucks pass us by here. I'm looking down right on the ground right now on the ramp that would take you to Route 110. They have blocked that off. There's a police officer standing right in the middle of the street right now.
Thank you very much. I just...
Let's go back to Dave, who is at the Pentagon site. Dave?
Hey, I just heard another explosion of some sort. Now, it could be a secondary explosion here from something happening, but we just heard a loud pop just as you were coming to me. It seemed to be on the east of here. I can't tell what it is. It might be something that's secondary to this because we had a number of small explosions after the fire occurred.
Dave, we understood there was construction. The area that was struck by the plane and what's on fire, was that the area under construction, so maybe there weren't a lot of people in that area?
There is, yeah, there's toward the south end of this area there are construction trailers, I can say that. But I can't tell you for sure if this area would be sparsely populated. We're actually being asked to move back by Virginia State Police a little bit. We're going to try to keep this location as much as possible. The reason they asked us to move back is because, of course, they're concerned about any secondary explosions. I can tell you from my experience as a firefighter, there's still a great deal of fire inside the Pentagon by the smoke that's coming out of there. I'm sure firefighters are inside making sure first that they can get everybody out that they can and then trying to attack the fire inside. They've also had fire, of course, on the outside that probably involved some sort of airplane fuel. That's why it burned it's still burning, in fact, on the south end, on the outside, near those construction trailers. Again, I can't tell you much more other than a loud pop just a few minutes ago that seemed a little bit different than the ones we heard earlier, which were on the outside here that could have been tires or something else. We're just watching also as they're taking another man to the hospital. It looks like it's going to be a medevac, and what I can tell, it looks like he's burned. There seems to be a burn sheet on top of him. Medics are taking him to the U.S. Park Police Eagle helicopter. I think we'll try to get a shot of that. We're going to show you over here on Washington Boulevard. The Eagle helicopter from Park Police is landing, taking this man to the hospital. From my vantage point, it looks like he has burns. We also, besides Arlington Fire and Rescue, see some doctors, what appear to be doctors on the scene. Not sure if they're military or not, who seem to be helping with the injured. As you can see, Virginia State Police are, again, trying to move us back, but I think we've been able to stall them off for the moment. Again, this is the E-ring of the Pentagon. Hold on one second, Mike and Andrea. In fact, we're seeing a second man who clearly is burned being sent to that medevac helicopter.
Right behind that truck. Right there.
As you can see, they're rushing him down here. This is a second person we have confirmed has what appears to be very serious burns.
Yes, we can see his hands being burned.
Can you take it back for a second? We need to coordinate something here.
Sure.
I'll be right back with you.
All right. We're just getting across the wire, too. Again, what preceded the Pentagon plane crash was the horrific destruction of the two planes crashing into the World Trade Center, which you see in our picture on the right-hand side of your screen. A witness said he saw bodies falling from the 110-story towers and people jumping out. There are no confirmed casualties or injuries, but looking at this.
This is tape.
This is tape from earlier this morning.
When the jet plowed in. Now we're getting word one of the World Trade Center towers in New York City has collapsed. It's collapsed, the structural damage from the two planes plowing in.
Also to let you know, because of what has happened, the Federal Aviation Administration has shut down all airplane traffic nationwide, nothing coming in, nothing going out. BWI will allow planes to land that were in the traffic pattern for landing, but I think after that, everything will be shut down. We're in a lockdown is basically what it is. All government buildings, major government buildings, have been evacuated. We heard from our crews on the scene that the Pentagon has been evacuated. Monuments and museums have been evacuated. Let's go to Frank Herzog, who is near one of the most visible monuments in the city, the Washington Monument. Frank, what do you see? What do you hear?
I'm on the west grounds of the Washington Monument. The area has been completely evacuated by Park Police, and I think I could answer Dave Statter's question about that secondary explosion.
Yes.
It wasn't an explosion. That was the sonic boom of jet fighters that were scrambled out of Andrews Air Force Base, we believe. They just circled the Washington area, flying from the east out to the west, and they were in a hurry, and they were high up in the air. So jet fighters, at least one, possibly two, were scrambled, probably as a precautionary measure. Needless to say, downtown Washington, D.C., except for the vehicular traffic, which is bumper to bumper, the rest of the city has been shut down. It looks like a Sunday morning here. The mall is absolutely empty. Park Police came through about 10 minutes ago, evacuated the entire area, and told tourists to go somewhere else. But I can tell you right now that at least one, if not two, jet fighters have been scrambled. They are patrolling the skies over Washington.
Frank Herzog, thank you very much. Let me just read you the lead. The Associated Press lead just came out of New York. But first of all, let's check in with Dave Staddard at the Pentagon. Dave?
It collapsed right now. As you can see, I assume you're taking our picture. I do not have a monitor. But right now, we just had a middle section here of the E-ring of the Pentagon collapse from the amount of fire and destruction from this. So obviously, there was a great deal of damage here. It just collapsed. We don't know who is inside or how many people are inside. You heard somebody, one of the people who was inside the building, talked to us a short time ago and said this E-ring of the Pentagon has a great many senior officials. So if somebody was planning something, this might have been the place if they wanted to get senior officials. Again, most of the fire on the outside of the building has been extinguished. There's still some spot fires on the outside of the building. And still, from what I can see, a great deal of fire inside. So now you have a gaping hole on the west side of the Pentagon here at Washington Boulevard, and this collapse just happened. It was not an explosion, a secondary explosion. This apparently the damage from the great deal of fire and the structural damage from the plane crash.
Any word yet, Dave, on casualties?
Other than seeing the two people we saw medevac who had serious burns, I can't confirm any others. They've been working on people, but we don't know what's inside that building, to be honest with you.
So
certainly anybody in those windows or in those offices by those windows, you have to be very, very concerned about right now.
All right, Dave Staddard, reporting from the Pentagon. Here you can see from Dave's camera shot several people being escorted out of the Pentagon. The Pentagon is being evacuated, as is the White House, the U.S. Capitol.
Most monuments, museums, the city basically, as you've heard from Frank Herzog and from photojournalist Rick Armstrong near the Washington Monument, closed down. Almost everything is closed down.
As you can see, a portion of the Pentagon has collapsed. This happened after a jet apparently deliberately plowed into the Pentagon.
We have Daniel McAdams on the phone. He is an eyewitness. Daniel, good morning. What did you see and where are you?
I'm here in Arlington, just off of Columbia Pike, probably about 2.5 miles from the Pentagon. And we were sitting in our living room having coffee, and it sounded like a military jet flyover that they do sometimes, you know, a very, very low altitude flyover. And then just a couple of seconds later, we heard a massive boom. All of our doors and windows shook. We went outside, looked out the window, and then saw a plume of smoke.
All right, Daniel, thank you very much. Let's go back to Dave Staddard. Dave, what do you have?
I know, hey, they're evacuating us now. They believe another plane. This could be a rumor, but they're evacuating everybody. Possibility of another plane coming in this direction. Certainly, but this is a major evacuation at the moment. Again, it could all be rumor, but FBI is evacuating everybody out of this area. I've got to go at the moment because they will not let me stay here.
Be safe, be safe. When we heard from Frank Herzog that boom that Dave thought he heard before was Air Force jets scrambling high up in the sky on alert. If there is something else coming in, we hope they get it first. We're looking again at the Pentagon where an aircraft crashed into the Pentagon this morning, causing what we had just seen, a gaping hole in the E-ring of the Pentagon. Evacuations. We have seen transports burn victims. We do not know about any casualties. We don't know if everyone was evacuated from the Pentagon before that collapse. We are watching, as you just heard Dave Staddard say, they are evacuating and moving back all of the news crews, getting people as far away from that building as possible because they thought they spotted another plane in the area. We do not have any confirmation on that, but we will keep you updated.
The Federal Aviation Administration has shut down all air traffic nationwide. This following the aircraft that crashed into the Pentagon. Two planes crashed into the World Trade Center up in New York City.
President Bush said today we have a national tragedy upon learning of the two planes crashing into the World Trade Center. He said he would be returning immediately to Washington, and the president has ordered a full-scale investigation to hunt down the folks, quote, who committed this act. And again, what you're looking at, within an hour of the Twin Towers explosion, an aircraft crashed at the Pentagon as well. The White House and other major government buildings, Treasury Department, Defense, have all been evacuated, and airplane traffic in and out all around the United States is closed down.
Let's go back to Lauren Ashburn, who's in the USA Today building in Roslyn. Lauren?
Yes, good morning, Buck and Andrea. I am taking a look right now at the Pentagon. There are 1, 2, 3, 4 helicopters I can see from the vista here in the USA Today Tower 1 building that overlooks
all of Washington from Arlington, Virginia. I can see one helicopter is on its way, it looks like to me, to the Washington Hospital Center. It's attempting a landing right now. I'm sure there are 2 others following in that direction at this point. I'm looking down at traffic. Traffic is at a standstill leaving the city. There are hardly any cars going into the city via Route 50. Traffic is backed up over the Memorial Bridge. And I'm looking down at police officers who are telling people to get off and turn around as they're coming in off of 395.
Yes, Lauren, we had heard that the Beltway near 395, which is that Pentagon exit, is closed down. So if you're leaving the home or going in that direction, don't. Go the other way. Just stay put. Stay home.
Now, Andrea.
Yes, Lauren.
I can see the sky. I know you had talked about possibly another plane from somewhere coming. I have a vista almost 180 degrees here across the horizon, and I can see not one single solitary plane.
Good.
The only thing I can see are those helicopters I talked to you about. The one helicopter has landed, it looks like to me, at Washington Hospital Center.
All right.
We have on the phone now Daryl Jenkins. Mr. Jenkins, you're an airline security expert with what organization?
Washington University Aviation Institute.
All right, sir. You've seen what's happened this morning. Give me your read.
Well, our lives will never be the same again. This will change everything we do in this city and everywhere else around here. This is the day that we will all remember until we die now. I can't even imagine anything more worse than what's going on right now. The terror is just unspeakable.
Basically what we probably have, Mr. Jenkins, is what, 3 hijackings and then the terrorists plowing to the World Trade Center and the Pentagon?
That's correct. Just the enormity that somebody would do something this awful to innocent people, there's no cause that can justify this. Everything about aviation will change, and even the Pentagon was under attack, and there's smoke coming from this. So whatever airports have been in the past, in terms of nightmarish getting through, the nightmare is only beginning because travel will become unspeakably difficult now.
What happened to airport security, sir?
I have no idea how any of this happened. We have no details at this time. I'm sure, though, that all resources will be brought to bear on this. In the future, getting through any airport will be very, very difficult. It will not be pleasant ever again.
I think you said it best, though, at the beginning. Our lives will never be the same. Everything will change after this.
Everything will change everywhere in this city and in just about everything that I do in commercial aviation.
Mr. Jenkins, you know, I can remember years back. It was D.C. Police Chief Maurice Cullinane, Jerry Wilson, Isaac Fullwood. They all said someday terrorism is going to come to the United States.
Well,
I think today it did.
Today it did, and like we said earlier, our lives will never be the same. I assume right now our nation's under attack and we're at war with some foreign body.
All right, Daryl, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Speaking of how everything is going to change, especially at major airports around the world, Gary Reels is at National Airport by phone. Gary, what's going on there?
Well, Andrea, it is, I hate to use a cliche, but it is truly a scene out of a movie here. The dark, acrid smoke wafting over from the Pentagon has shrouded the terminal area here at National Airport lightly, not a dense fog here at the airport, but a light fog nonetheless. And there has been, we've been here at the airport proper now for about 20 to 25 minutes. There is still a constant stream of people evacuating the entire airport. Of course, as you've been reporting, airport operations around the United States have been shut down very abruptly, and National Airport is certainly in the thick of that. There are still at this hour hundreds and hundreds of people evacuating, just streaming by foot. By foot, everybody's walking. There's a heavy security presence here, needless to say. And of course, the people who are here and are leaving here can see very clearly the cause of this, and that is the plane crash into the Pentagon and the smoke. They're getting a first-hand taste of it.
All right, Gary, thank you. Gary Rose reporting.
One second. The State Department has just been evacuated. After a possible explosion or a fire, a senior government official speaking on the condition of anonymity said the incident appears connected with the two plane attacks at the World Trade Center and the Pentagon. According to this source, quoting now, something has happened at the State Department. We don't know what yet. We hear it might have been a plane. This, anybody, Frank or Rick, Lauren, can anybody see anything over at the State Department?
Statter?
Yeah, I'm here.
You hear anything about the State Department?
No, I know there was concern here. Let me describe what happened when we had to rush off a little while ago.
Yes.
There was concern, and we don't like to put rumors on the air, and I'm not sure that you can call this a rumor, but FBI on the scene at the Pentagon told everybody to leave the area because there was concern of a hijacked plane that might be coming in this direction.
Hold on.
We know.
Hey, Dave?
Yes.
We just got this bulletin from the Associated Press. A car bomb explodes outside the State Department. Being attributed to senior law enforcement officials. Again, a car bomb has just exploded.
Let's go to Frank Herzog, who is outside the State Department. Frank, what have you seen?
All right, we'll hold on for Frank.
Frank had been down at the area of the Washington
Let me
Monument.
just tell you, I mean, if you're just waking up, this is not a dream. This is not some B movie you're watching.
And this is not a Tom Clancy scenario. This is the real thing.
This morning, about 8:45, a plane crashed into the World Trade Center in New York. 18 minutes later, another plane, apparently a hijacked jet, out of Boston, bound for L.A., crashed into the world. You see the picture right there. That's the second explosion when this American Airlines jet, apparently hijacked, plowed into the World Trade Center. Then about an hour ago, there was an explosion at the Pentagon. A plane plowed into the Pentagon near the heliport.
Look at this. Oh. And one of the towers, we had reported that one had collapsed here, is proof that...
Frank Herzog, where are you?
I'm still at the Washington Monument. I'm looking at the State Department.
Yes. What do you see?
Nothing has happened there now. It looks all quiet, but I am getting reports from Park Police that another plane was hijacked out of Pittsburgh. That's the word they're getting. Another plane was hijacked out of Pittsburgh, which may explain why those two fighter jets were scrambled out of here about 15 minutes ago.
Yeah,
but so far, the State Department is quiet. There's no indication of anything going on in the building. All we hear is just the constant wail of sirens here in downtown Washington.
Again, to confirm what Dave Statter told us just a few minutes ago, Pentagon officials are evacuating people from the area of the Pentagon, fearing another plane could be en route. Frank Herzog has been told by a U.S. Park Police officer there's been another hijacking, this plane out of Pittsburgh. Apparently, we got to they're scrambling out of Andrews Air Force Base.
Other major government institutions, including Treasury and the State Department, were being evacuated even before we heard about something possibly being directed specifically at the State Department after the explosion at the Pentagon. Again, we are looking at two pictures. The one on the left of your screen is the Pentagon, where a section of that building has collapsed, struck by an aircraft. This is New York City, where one of the Twin Towers collapsed after it was struck by aircraft, one of the 110-story towers.
Emilio Villano, he's a terrorism expert over at American University. Sir, are you with us here? Emilio? I think we just
I think
we
yeah,
lost
just
him. The phones in this area, everybody's on a cell phone.
Trying
You
to
can't
get
out.
This was live of the second tower. We believe the second tower of the World Trade Center just collapsed. That's what you were looking at live. You can't see very well through the smoke, but it is obvious that those two large structures that we saw just a little while ago aren't there. We're going to pick up live coverage from our sister station in New York, WCBS. Let's listen to
now
what they're
reduced
saying.
to a pile of rubble and ash, smoke billowing above the city. Jim Smith, stay with us if you will. What is the evaluation and what else you're able to see from your vantage point?
Well, Michael, we have seen the entire lower half of Manhattan just completely covered in smoke, debris, dust, everything well south of Canal Street is just completely and covered in this smoke and dust at this time. There is not anything recognizable of what were the two trade towers, nothing standing out from those clouds of dust at this time.
My goodness.
We understand the schools in the area reporting that the children were there. At last report, the children were safe. They're saying that the parents, if you can get there, and in this, frankly, it'd be quite difficult. The schools are under a lockdown. The children are not allowed to leave unless the parents come to get them. But we have heard word that the children are okay. The casualties here are far, we don't even want to speculate.
No,
we do
we
have
can't.
reporters at St. Vincent's, at Bellevue, throughout the city, crews throughout the city. We know that you're worried about your loved ones down there. This is the financial district of the world, and clearly untold number of people that are down there right now, and this is as close as we can get to the scene. Jim Smith, you're about, what, 5 miles?
Yeah, that's right, Michael. We're about 5 to 6 miles away. We've been forced to move to Staten Island at this point to bring you these pictures. And we understand to go along with the airport shutting down and no airplanes being allowed to take off nationwide, we have been in contact with military aircraft in the area that are enforcing a complete no-fly zone. Once we land, we will not be allowed to take back off. So as aircraft are removed from the area, none will be allowed back in.
That's understandable. Langley Air Force Base, all the Air Force bases you would imagine are on high alert. Possibly, I don't know if anybody's, we're not hearing that. We're trying to get the beat on whether the military and to what aspect the military has been and is taking action about this. Again, not a confirmation per se, but it's hard to imagine that this is anything but a terrorist attack. We're getting some information here.
Just the timeline of the events, but let's stay with what you're looking at, if we could, as a live picture of what is left of the Manhattan skyline. Jim, I want to bring you back in because we have reports that there are United States fighter jets cruising the area over New Jersey. Can you confirm that?
Yes, we can. Our pilot has been in contact with some F-16 fighters that have been in the area. We do not know exactly.
All right, welcome back to Eyewitness News. We want to report Mark Brady of Prince George's County Fire and EMS telling all duty personnel to report to their duty stations immediately, regardless of their schedule. They want all Prince George's Fire and EMS personnel to report to their duty stations.
One of our photojournalists, Denny Bly, has just called in. He says there's at least 15 people injured at the Pentagon.
We saw the tower. Both towers now collapsed at World Trade Center, and from American Airlines, they are saying a plane that crashed into the World Trade Center was one of theirs. It was Flight 11 from Boston to Los Angeles. That was American Airlines Flight 11 from Boston to Los Angeles was the plane that crashed into the World Trade Center. This AP advisory is from American Airlines.
Anthony Garrett was inside the Pentagon when the plane slammed into the area near the heliport, the E-ring. Mr. Garrett?
Yes.
You okay?
I'm fine, yes, thank you.
Tell me what you heard, what you saw.
Well, excuse me, I was over there just meeting with some of my customers. I'm a defense contractor, and we were standing around watching the CNN report on the World Trade Center incident.
Yeah.
When we felt a jolt, something along the lines I would suspect of like a minor tremor, and then a strong gust of air went through the hallways. Immediately after that, someone in the hallway started yelling, "Get out of the building now!"
Panic inside there?
Excuse me?
Was there panic inside there?
Yeah, it got fairly chaotic quickly as everyone was trying to run down the narrow corridors there on the D ring to get to an exit.
You believe this, Mr. Garrett?
It's certainly of great concern, I guess.
Yeah, that's putting it mildly, I guess.
You were talking about panic. We want to go to Bruce LeShan. He's on the phone, and there's panic, as you can imagine, downtown. Bruce, can you hear us?
Yes, Andrea. I would describe it as kind of quiet chaos here. Many of the buildings have been evacuated in downtown, and there are thousands of people out on the street trying to figure out how to get home. There are long lines next to the parking garages as people try and get their cars and get out of downtown. Around the executive mansion, people evacuated from the White House grounds, and they're setting up a rather wide perimeter around there, at least down as far as 15th Street on one side there. The uniformed Secret Service officers have been putting out yellow tape and refusing to let anybody get near the White House Treasury Department complex in that area. And a lot of people who were working on the White House grounds and in the surrounding office buildings kind of walking around with shocked looks on their faces. A lot of rumors flying around here. So far, no specific incidents downtown, but many emergency crews running around and heading in various directions, trying to deal with anything that might crop up. I actually saw 2 paramedic units from Walter Reed Hospital coming all the way down here downtown to kind of station themselves and prepare for whatever might happen. Advice for people who are watching and might have business downtown, don't. Yeah. Do not come down here. It is absolute gridlock down here, and they're doing their best to keep everybody out and the streets cleared, and it is a very difficult proposition.
Bruce LeShan, thank you. Please stay in touch. We're getting word, too. CNN is reporting that, as we told you, Capitol Hill, the Capitol has been evacuated. Now CNN is reporting that members of Congress have been taken to a secure location. Members of Congress being taken to a secure location for their protection.
This is unbelievable.
The United States basically has been attacked. The U.S. has been attacked by terrorists this morning.
Wall Street is shut down. The nearby World Financial Center, which houses NYMEX, was evacuated. The American Stock Exchange, the New York Mercantile Exchange, the Chicago Board of Trade has suspended all